Good evening, sir. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, sir.
Today we'll be seeing a small introduction about environment and biodiversity. So this is a very important topic in both your prelims and your mains examination. So for your prelims, you can expect around 12 to 15 questions from this paper. And in your mains, you have this on paper 3. Okay, so in paper 3, you will find a topic called environment, and in which you will have questions from environmental facts, environmental laws, sustainable development, disaster management, etc. Okay. So how to approach this subject is you will have a mix of static area and current affairs area, okay, or what we call the dynamic area. So static area is nothing but where the facts don't change. For example, like history. Okay, dynamic area is kind of something which is a part of your regular current affairs. For example, they are passing a law today, like maybe 6 months from now or 8 years from now or 10 years from now, they may change the law or amend the law or bring in a new law. So facts regarding that are dynamic or current affairs parts. Okay, so you will get a mix of both. It will never rarely it will be pure static or pure dynamic. Okay, so one thing is so what we teach in class mostly is your static part, and you have to keep yourself update with the dynamic parts by reading your newspapers regularly. Okay, so newspaper is a must, and most of you who are entering into service, so I mean who are entering into this preparation, this might be a new thing to you, but please do develop that habit. And the first 2 to 3 months you will find it little difficult because you will not be able to connect the facts. There will not be any continuity, but as you proceed further down the line, 3 months later, you will find it very easy. Okay, so current affairs is not isolated, it is just a chain of events. So I ask you or suggest you to keep reading it so that you get the continuity. So environment and biodiversity. Okay, so first, what is environment? Okay, so generally when we say environment, it means the place where we are living. Okay, the surroundings. Okay, we just say the environment is too hot, the environment is too cold, something like that. Okay, but when it comes to the subject, it is nothing but the place where living and non-living organisms or factors interact. Okay, so in environment as a subject, non-living is different from dead. Okay, so living and dead are a part of the biotic ecosystem, and non-living are a part of abiotic ecosystem. So what is the difference between dead and non-living? So your air, water, nutrients, energy, light, all those are non-living components. Anything that was previously living or which was surviving, which was able to multiply on its own and sustain, so that is living component, and which has stopped all those activities is a dead component. Okay, so they are all a part of biotic ecosystem. Okay, so the interactions between that habitat and the ecosystem create the environment. Okay, and habitat is nothing but the address, and ecosystem is where this interaction happens, which is the environment. Okay, and environment is kind of an umbrella term, and the ecosystems, there are different combinations of different biotic and abiotic factors create different ecosystems. For example, desert is an ecosystem. You take water, aquatic ecosystems. Ocean is a saline ecosystem, or which we call the marine ecosystem. Your rivers and lakes may be freshwater or maybe saline. Your rivers are mostly freshwater ecosystems. So if you see this image, you will find something called atmosphere, hydrosphere, lithosphere, and biosphere. Biosphere is nothing but the interaction of the air component, atmosphere, water component, hydrosphere, and the earth component, lithosphere. Okay, the word lith means earth. Okay, so earth, component is lithosphere. Okay, and air is atmos, water is hydros. So when all these three interact, we have the biosphere. Okay, so it is from this. Okay, so it is from this where all the living component originate. Okay, so Earth has this the combination of all these, so which is why it is the only living planet. In other planets, you may have water, but Earth has a sustainable temperature in which water can exist in liquid form. Okay, so when we are searching for extraterrestrial planets, we will make sure we find a planet where the planet is at a sufficient distance from the star, where it is neither too close for the water to be in vapor form, or where it is too far away for the entire water to be in ice form. Okay, so the water has to be in liquid form, and apart from that, there should exist conditions where circulation of water is possible, which is the hydrological cycle or water cycle which we study. Okay, so when we go into ecosystems, which is the third or fourth chapter, there will be a particular topic called aquatic ecosystems. So in that we will understand why hydrological cycle is important, why only liquid form of if the planet has the condition to sustain water in its liquid form, life is possible. So why not other components? So why not can't a planet survive, have living species if majority of it is methane? It can't it have, if for example, sodium, potassium? Why exactly water? So that we'll be seeing in the upcoming classes. Okay, so as we've seen, where lithosphere, hydrosphere and atmosphere interacts, that's the biosphere. Okay, so now what should we study in environment? Okay, so there is no clear cut explanation or details of what is your prelims topics, but in your mains syllabus you have these 3 points. So conservation of ecosystem, environmental pollution and degradation, environmental impact assessment, disaster and disaster management. This is the entire reference to environment in your UPSC. Okay, so then how do we understand which topics does UPSC ask their questions from? So that you have to, or we have to see the previous year question papers, so that we'll understand like what are the topics from which UPSC generally asks questions. Okay, so we have a detail from 1979 when UPSC has started prelims. So based on that, we have narrowed down or expanded environment to certain topics which we will be studying in our classes. So first, ecology. So what is the structure and function of the ecosystem, and what does it mean by, what does ecological succession mean? Okay, so generally what is the function of an ecosystem? When we see, it is on simple terms, it is nothing but sustaining the life. Okay, and for life to sustain, the ecosystem should perform certain functions, or should make sure certain things get done. Okay, so one such thing is ensuring availability of provisions. So in one case, like ensuring availability of water, ensuring availability of food, and all those. And for that to happen, there should be something called nutrient cycling. Okay, where nutrients keep on evolving around the globe. Okay, so this is the critical part of an ecosystem, and that is done mostly by our microbes. Okay, so everything has to work in tandem to get this system to function, and any imbalance in one part or the other, so will lead to problems. So next, biodiversity conservation. Okay, so why do we need biodiversity conservation? So humans as a species have dominated the planet for the last 40,000 years, and we have started to eradicate or get some populations of certain species to go extinct. And with the advent of technology and the progress of human civilization, this rate of destruction of the environment has actually increased, and because of that we are losing a lot of biodiversity. Okay. This has actually increased post-industrial revolution and has further increased in the 19th century. Okay. So to make sure that the future generations have access to these resources, so conservation becomes important. Okay. And also, like, if there is no conservation, if there is a very large scale destruction of the ecosystem, so there will be a threat even to the existing civilization. So you can see global warming, uh, erratic climate conditions, like extreme weather conditions. So one year you have extreme cyclones. So this year we don't even have a heat wave, but we had one, last 5 years, every year we had a heat wave. And if you have read the newspapers 3 days back, we have like overproduced air conditioning systems in an expectation that they will sell. And today we are facing a stock of 22 lakh air conditioning systems unsold. So Coca-Cola has said that they have overproduced 7.8 crore liters of the soft drink, which they will have a hard time selling because monsoon has started earlier. Okay, so all these are problematic. Uh, so one part, your economy is affected because weather prediction has become tough today due to increase in global warming. And what is the cause of increase in global warming? So we have polluted the environment with too much of carbon dioxide, which for 800,000 years was in a delicate state of balance. But after 1750, so when the steam engine was invented, or which was the seed of the industrial revolution, the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere has almost increased to 50%, or it has gone from 280 parts per million to 420 parts per million. Okay, so all this is threatening the biodiversity. So how do we conserve? So we can conserve them in two ways. Either we can conserve them at the same place, which we use the term in situ conservation. Okay, so for example, your national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, biosphere reserves, community reserves, all those are your in situ conservation sites. Some are called ex situ conservation sites, like your zoos, or which we call the zoological parks, botanical gardens, seed vaults. Okay. Okay. So why do we need two different strategies? Why should we have in situ conservation and why should we have ex situ conservation? So for example, if the number of species is so small that you cannot conserve them in wild, or when you are trying to conserve them in wild, there is a high chance of the species going extinct. So you go for ex situ conservation. You take them from the wild and keep them in a contained environment. So if you take the vultures, Indian vultures, so there were around 10 lakh vultures at the beginning of 1990s. But because of a drug they use in cattle, which is an antibiotic to prevent the inflammation of the milking area, the vultures uh, started experiencing renal failures where the kidneys failed, and it came down to a few hundreds in 2000. And vultures are a very important part of the ecosystem because they are scavengers. Okay, so they are responsible for removing the discarded meat of dead animals, and if they are taken away from the ecosystem, so that will lead to more bodies being exposed, which will lead to an increase in deadly diseases or communicable diseases. So later survey says because of the loss of vultures from the Indian ecosystem, so we had around 25 lakh preventable deaths, so because of the communicable diseases, especially in rural areas. So whatever happens, so be it global warming, heat wave, cyclone, communicable diseases, non-communicable diseases, anything, the population that is strongly affected is the poor. Okay, the vulnerable people, the bottom of the bottom, or the Antodhya section of the population. Okay, so they experience a significant hardships because of anything that happens, be it economic hardship, political hardship, or environmental hardship. Okay, so every part of the ecosystem is important. Okay, so we know so there are some conservation strategies ex situ and in situ, but what about the cross border conservation, or the acts that, or the laws that are needed to conserve the biodiversity? Okay, so for example, at international level, there are certain laws which are to conserve the biodiversity. For example, the first one, CITES. Okay, so Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora. Okay, so fauna, it means animals, and flora is basically plants. Okay, so what is endangered species? Endangered species are those which are at high risk of going extinct soon. Okay, why do they why are they at such a high risk? So one, loss of habitat. Two, it could be wildlife trade. Okay, so you would have studied the news today, like a tiger was almost chased by thousands of people who killed it and took away its parts as trophies. Sometimes tigers and elephants, uh, crocodiles, bear, um, tortoise, all those are killed, and the parts are traded. Okay, so that has also led to a huge loss of biodiversity. Okay, so this convention, so convention is basically a grouping, and this is out of agreement between countries. So every country will make sure that trade in endangered species does not happen. If a species is designated as endangered, so all the countries should take part in its protection, even if the country has that animal or not. For example, take pandas. Pandas are generally, the Asian panda is generally found only in China. But all the countries who are signatory to it, even India, should make sure panda is not traded. And take for example red sanders, the one they showed in the movie Pushpa. So that is only found in Tirumala Hills, Tirupati. Okay, but if one such thing is found in China, the Chinese government also has to take efforts to stop the trade of red sanders in their country, because it doesn't matter if they have it or not. If they are a signatory to this, they will have to take the efforts. Next is this thing called IUCN, International Union for Conservation of Nature. Okay, so it's a broad convention, so which makes sure that a lot of international conventions regarding environment are effectively monitored, and the countries follow the rules. Okay, then next thing is for biological diversity. Again, it's for the biological diversity in entirety. Okay, so we keep on seeing this thing called diversity. Okay, so what is diversity? So the definition for biological diversity is variability of species. Okay, um, so for example, you have more species along the equator than the poles. Okay, so it's not only the number but also the types. Okay, so for example, you have more number of species of trees, and the population of each species is very less in the tropical areas. But you go near the polar areas like coniferous forest, the number of species is less, but one species will dominate the entire area. Okay, so this is variability. Okay, next is United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification. These are some of the few conventions. So desertification is nothing but a process where desert like conditions start expanding. Okay, so what are desert like conditions? Any area which loses its fertility to sustain plant growth is a desert. Okay, So why is it expanding? Because global warming causes erratic rainfall patterns which lead to droughts, and if the land is not cultivated for a couple of years, it loses its fertility and becomes a permanent desert. So there is an international convention to stop this, and India is one of the signatories, and we have a pledge to reclaim 26 million hectares of land by 2030. So it's such a serious problem that there is a huge green wall built across Sahara to stop the expansion of Sahara desert to the south. It cuts the entirety of Africa. Okay, so this is a very big problem. Okay, so why is this a very big problem? Because the global population is expanding, and if the land which we are able to cultivate is being lost to droughts, it will lead to food insecurity. It will be a huge threat to food security. So as a result of this, what will happen? People will face malnutrition, undernutrition, and all those things. Okay. So next, climate change. So we all know that's happening. Um, so climate change is kind of a broader term. Okay, so climate change may signify global cooling or global warming, both of which have happened in Earth's geological history spanning 4.6 billion years. Okay, but what is happening today is global warming. So global warming has happened previously, but why are we scared of it now? So the past two times when global warming happened, so at one point there were no animals on large scale, and on the second time when it happened there were no humans. So this is the first time humans are being present when global warming is happening. And also the significance of this global warming is this is the first time one single species is changing the uh, nature of the climate of this planet. Third is the pace at which this is happening. So global warming, the pace of the past two events was very small. So compared to this. Next, so what are the strategies to prevent it? So clean energy, green energy, environmental sustainability. So is clean energy, green energy same? No. So clean energy is something with zero emissions. For example, you have nuclear fusion. Green energy is nothing but it is derived from ecological sources. That's all. Okay. So clean energy, uh, for example, you build a hydroelectric power project. Okay. So that is green energy. But if it is built destroying large amount of forests, that's not clean energy. Okay. So you can take a simple example of electric vehicles. So we think electric vehicles is clean energy. But what if you are sourcing the power from a thermal power plant? That is not clean, right? So that is where the difference comes. Okay. So hydrogen is pitched as an important source of clean power. Okay, so hydrogen comes from electrolysis of water. So for you to split water into hydrogen and oxygen, you need energy. So if we take that energy from thermal power plant, it's called black hydrogen or brown hydrogen. And if we take that from hydel power plant, it's called blue hydrogen. And if it is done from something like windmill, it's called green hydrogen. Okay. So green hydrogen is both clean and green. Okay. So that is the difference. Then pollution. So when we are dealing with pollution, we'll see. So you all could have known from your school days the types of pollution: soil pollution, air pollution, water pollution, and sound pollution. Okay. So basically, what is pollution? So anything that degrades the parts of the ecosystem is a pollutant, and that process is called a pollution. Okay. So for example, you add chemicals to water which makes the water unusable. Okay, so when water degrades, as a resource, from being a resource. So that is called pollution. So normally I can drink the water, and the definition of resource is anything that has utility is a resource. Now, if something is added to that water and I am not able to drink that water, it is no more a resource. And what I am adding to that water is a pollutant, and the process is called pollution. Okay. So basically, the simple definition of pollution or pollutant is anything that is undesirable is a pollutant. Okay. So apart from the four common pollutions which you would have studied in your school or college days, so there are some other things like radiological pollution, plastic pollution, light pollution, etc. Okay. So all these we will be discussing in detail. So what are the laws to combat pollution in global scenario and the national level? So national level we have the Water Act, Air Act, the Environmental Protection Act, and all those. So at global level, we have this Paris Climate Accord to reduce carbon emissions, which will cause global warming, and we have something called Basel norms, Stockholm Convention, so that pollutants are not transferred across boundaries. Okay, so all those. So sometimes pollution can also be transferred across boundaries because nature does not understand the political boundaries that humans draw. So a simple example is the Chernobyl accident, so which happened in 1984 when one of the Russian nuclear reactors in Chernobyl burst out, spreading radiation across Europe. Okay, so that is one disaster. Okay, so and there are a lot of disasters. For example, an oil spill, the coast of India can spread to the neighboring countries, something like that. Okay, so next is sustainable development. So what is sustainable development? So when will you use the word sustainable? So if you have the ability to overcome it, so then that is sustainable. So for example, I am using nature in a way that the next generation will not be able to access the resources that I access today. That is unsustainable. Okay, it is unsustainable for nature. Okay. So if there's a lake, it has like 1 lakh liters of water, and every day 1000 liters come in. Okay, so there's something called buffering capacity of nature. So if I consume the resource in such a way that 1000 liters of water are used, or I use less than 1000 liters, so it gets refilled every time. So I use less than the buffering capacity. So now I am utilizing the resource. But if I start using more than 1000 liters, say 2000 liters, so in 100 days, the capacity of lake, which is 1 lakh liters, will go bust because I am overusing it. I am exploiting it. Okay. So that is not good. Okay. So that is the concept of sustainable development. So it doesn't say like don't use the resource, don't use any petrol, just go by walking. That is not the concept. It says use it, but make sure the next generation also can use it. Okay, so that is sustainable development. And there is this thing called sustainable development goals, where there are like 17 goals with the target of 2030. Okay, so that is the thing. And these are some of the basic terminologies which we'll be seeing in the first classes. So any subject you take, it will have like 100 to 150 terminologies which are like basic understanding, like the alphabets. Okay, so basically we are just skipping your school days and directly going to college. So uh, in that case you will have to start understanding the terminologies. Okay, so some of you might have an engineering background, so you polity, history, geography might be new to you. Some of you would come from an arts background where you'll be strong in your core subjects, and other subjects will be a little harder to understand at the start. So one one of the ways to make sure your preparation is easy is to start with the terminologies. Okay. The second way or the other way is start with your NCERTs. Okay. So your NCERT books are your foundation of civil services, and you must also try to understand the difference between reference books and textbooks. So reference books are, just like the name says, it is just for reference. Don't try to buy the books. So because you just Google like what are the books for history in UPSC, it will throw up like 6 to 7 books, and if you start reading the 6 to 7 books, you will have to spend 1 year for one subject. So almost there are 9 subjects if you classify UPSC broadly. So it will take 9 years for your preparation to get over. Then you have to write your exams. Okay. So don't do that mistake. Okay, because reference books are only for reference. So even if you buy 1,000 books, India got independence on August 15, 1947. That is not going to change. So the same way, make sure you limit your books. So the books will be available from the institute. So they will have like a refined syllabus. So they'll have taken out the unimportant things, and some additional points will be given in the class. So make sure you stick to the basics and you be very strong with the fundamentals. Okay. So these are some of the basic terminologies in environment which will be discussed in the first class. And any doubts you have regarding this, please do clarify, because environment is kind of a new subject for most of you, and these are some of the basic things we'll be seeing in environment. So what are the earth, so how seasons are important for uh, the ecosystem, and what are the landforms, and which landform will have what type of forests, and what are the types of ecosystem, and all those. Okay. And then we'll see a few of PYQs. So these are all the previous year questions. And there's usually this myth that UPSC is one of the toughest exams in India, and UPSC is never close to the toughest exams in India. Some of the toughest exams includes RBI Grade B exam, LIC AO exam, and ABARD, and all those. So this is not the toughest, and this is also not one of the easiest. Okay, so the only thing that makes this toughest is the insane competition. Okay, a lot of people compete for a limited number of posts. This is neither a technical exam. So this all depends on your sincerity. So this is a previous year question. So you can see like the question is understandable. Okay, you know what photosynthesis is, you know what respiration is, you know what decay is, you know what volcanic action is, you know what carbon dioxide is, you know what carbon cycle is. Okay, and even if you don't know what carbon cycle is, it is very easy. Which are the following add carbon dioxide to earth? Now, from the school days, we would have known like what photosynthesis is. Plants take in carbon dioxide and give out oxygen. So basically, it removes carbon dioxide. Next, respiration. So we give out. So what we do? We give out carbon dioxide. So yes, we add it. Next is organic matter, decay of organic matter. Anything that decays produces carbon dioxide. And volcanic action. So whenever you draw a volcano, you draw anything with black smoke. Anything that smokes is fire, and anything that is fire adds carbon dioxide. So apart from photosynthesis, all the others, that's all. Okay. So the only thing that is tougher, or if you feel the question is tougher, is if you cannot understand the question. So, and if you take any random question paper of UPSC, you can definitely understand 60 to 70 questions. So getting it right or wrong is a different story altogether. So you can understand. Okay. And next step is making it right or wrong. Okay. So that depends on how much you have studied in that topic. Okay. So the cutoff for UPSC is just 50 questions out of 100 questions. If you are able to answer 50 out of 100 question, you can clear. So which is fairly easy because you can understand 70, you just need to get 50 right. Okay, and this is one question. So which of the following are decomposers? So you know what a decomposer is, and bacteria and fungi. So fungi are called dry decomposers and bacteria decompose dead organic matter. And for something to what will be decomposed? Anything that is dead will be decomposed. Okay. So virus cannot live outside a living host. Okay. So virus it cannot live outside anything. It cannot live outside a living thing, and it cannot definitely live on a dead one. So definitely the virus is out of options. So it's 2 and 3. So this is how the questions will be easily understandable. And if you just put 1 year of sincere efforts into this, so easily clear it. And so we have 15 more minutes. If you have any doubts or clarifications regarding this exams, you can ask me.
Sir, can you share the questions?
Yeah. The you just text them or like however you contact them. So all these slides will be with them. So they'll share it.
Okay, sir.
So if you don't want to talk, you can also like type the questions in the messages. Any questions? Anyone having doubts or you need any clarifications? You can ask about anything, not only environment.
So, how many questions will be asked in the prelims and from from environment and biodiversity?
So you cannot say the exact number of questions. We can assume like at least 12. So there were years where around 18 questions have come also.
Okay, sir.
Okay. If you don't have any questions, then we'll wind up. So any questions?
Sir, how we can prepare for IAS and UPSC, sir?
How you can prepare for IAS and?
First, I'm going to step in UPSC, sir. How we
Okay.
can prepare, sir? From
So
basic.
from basics, like I told you, your NCERT books are your basics, and you should always have the list of previous year question papers, because previous year question papers will help you in weeding out the unnecessary parts, or else like you will be reading a lot of unnecessary things. Okay, because you when you see the previous year question papers, you know like which area has been asked the most, and you will definitely know which area they will not ask. For example, you take economics. Okay, so the title given in your our syllabus is Indian economy, it's not economics. So economics is a broader subject which will have microeconomics, macroeconomics and everything. And if you take economics book from NCERT, so there is like actually two books, microeconomics and macroeconomics. You don't need to study microeconomics. Okay, so macroeconomics is fine, and that idea you will get from analyzing the previous year question papers. If you take NCERT books, you have like around 30-35 books. That is enough to strengthen your basics, and after that you have to supplement that with your newspaper readings, and added to that, if you can develop answer writing skills, you'll get it the service. That's all. So it's not like you have to read a lot of library material, big books like 800 pages, 900 pages. Everything is in your school books. It's just how deep your understanding is. It's not like how wider you read.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Fine. So we'll wind up. Thank you.